তো যে কইলে মোটে গেল কোথায়?
তো তারপর এখানটার মধ্যে বলেছে যে নেট প্রফিট অফ 1 লাখ
তো হচ্ছে
মানে
হচ্ছে না
2 লাখ
কেন?
থেকে 84,000 মাইনাস করলে 1 লাখ 60 will be transferred to
তো
A and C in their profit sharing ratio 3:1. তো এই যে B এর 2 মানে B এর যে রেশিওটা ছিল 2 ওইটা কেন চলে গেল?
হচ্ছে না কেন? Okay. Good afternoon, students. Today we are just revising the chapter friction. The notes I had already sent to you. Okay. Now in physics there are 3 chapters. Now sound I will discuss on later on. First I will send you the notes. Later I will discuss on. Okay. Now this chapter is friction. Now friction is a familiar word you already know. Now friction, it is the force which always the one object over the another object in contact with it. So the main word of definition of the friction is the contact. Until and unless there is a contact between the two objects, no friction will be generated. Okay. So whenever we push a light box kept on the floor, then we need to apply lesser force to move, because when the weight is less, then the friction will be less. Now whenever we push a heavy box kept on the floor, we need to apply greater force to move, because heavy box will exert more force on the ground and more pressure on the ground, and hence there will be more friction. Now next is the direction of friction. Now the direction of friction is always acting opposite to the direction of the moving object. Now you have already know that whenever you are riding a cycle or a bike, the air friction always come from the opposite direction, because the direction of the friction is always opposite to the direction of the motion of the body, and hence the force of friction always try to reduce the speed of the moving object. Now see the diagram I am showing you. See, the boy and the girl is pushing a box. Now the boy and the girl is pushing the box forward, but the force of friction is acting on the opposite direction. Okay. Now next topic is cause of friction. In the notes you know that I have sent you the word irregularities. What is irregularities? Irregularities are the some dot like structure which we can't see with our naked eyes. So every object have some irregularities present on their surfaces, whether it is a smooth or rough. So rough surfaces will have more irregularities as compared to the smooth surface. Thus whenever there is the interlocking between these irregularities, then a friction is generated. Okay. So rough surfaces will have more irregularities and smooth surfaces will have less irregularities. So the friction will be more in the rough surface and the friction will be less in the smooth surface. Now I am showing you the diagram. See, in the diagram A and B are the two objects and the irregularities are shown in the diagram itself. Okay. Now see, whenever the A and B are in contact with each other, then due to these irregularities a friction is generated, and this friction is the main thing. Okay, this is the cause of the friction. If there is no irregularity, then there will be no friction is generated. Now the next topic is the spring balance. Now spring balance, whenever you will go to the lab, then you will observe the spring balance, or nowadays you can see the spring balance with the paper wala they are collecting, and in some shop they are used to measure some weight. Now in spring balance there are three main things. Number one is the holder. Okay, this we hold with our hand or on the wall. Next is the pointer. Okay, and last is the hook. Now see, this is the hook. Okay, now whenever we want to weight some object on the spring balance, we have to put the object on the hook itself. Now the pointer, here the pointer is there, the pointer will come to downward direction, and the downward direction, and it will show the what is the weight of the object. Okay, so what is the spring balance? It is a device which is used to measure the force acting on an object. Actually a spring balance contains a coiled spring which gets stretched when a force is applied to its free end having a hook. Now this is the free end having a hook. It will always come to downward direction. Now the extent by which the spring gets stretched is a measure of the force applied. The stretching is indicated by a pointer attached to the spring which moves on the graduated scale. So when the pointer will come more downward, then there will be the more weight of the object. If the pointer is coming less downward, then there is a less weight of the object. Okay. Now this diagram I think I have already sent you in the notes also. Okay. Now next up topics is factor affecting the friction. What are the factor affecting the friction? Now see, there are two factor affecting the friction. Number one is the nature of the two surfaces, whether it is smooth or rough, and number two is the force with which the two surfaces are pressed together. Now regarding the nature of the two surfaces, if the surfaces are smooth, then the friction will be very less because there is very less irregularities. If the surface is rough, then the friction will be more because there is more irregularities. Just now I have discussed this thing. Okay. So whenever you touch a rough surface, you will observe that there will be more friction. Whenever you touch a smooth surface, there will be a less friction. So if you suppose you hold some sand in your hand, you will observe that the surface is rough, so it will have more friction. But on the other hand, if you take some powder, it will have very less friction because it is a smooth surface. Okay. Now see one diagram. I am showing you the diagram. You see the diagram. Now see, here is one bricks. Okay. Now the bricks is pulled by the spring balance. When the brick is pulled by the spring balance, you know that the bricks is a rough surface. Then there will be more friction due to the rough surface. But if the bricks is wrapped with the polythene, then the bricks will move faster because the surface become smooth. Okay. Now the next topic, next point is dependence on the friction on the force with which the two surfaces are pressed. Okay. Now if it is very easier, you know that to push a light box because it presses the floor with the less force and hence friction is less. Now see the first diagram. The boy and the girl is pushing a light box and it is very easier for them because the floor, because with a less force, because the weight is less. So whenever the weight of the object is less, then the friction will be less, so it is very easier to push the box. On the other hand, it is very difficult to push a heavy box because it presses the floor with more forces and hence the friction is more. Now see in the second diagram, the boy and the girl is pushing the heavy box, and as the box is heavy, so there is a more pressure on the ground, and with they have to apply the more muscular force to push the box because the friction is much more. Okay. So I think from the diagram it is clear that if the box is light, then we have to apply very less force, less friction, and if the box is heavy, then we have to apply more force because the friction is more. Okay. Now I hope whatever I just discussed about it, it is very clear to you. Okay. On the next class, I will again discuss about the static friction, sliding friction, and rolling friction. Now if you have any problem, any doubt regarding the physics, you can tell me personally. Now in the copy, you must draw the diagram in the white page because in science it is very mandatory to draw the diagram, and from the diagram you will very clearly understood what the thing is there. Okay. Now whenever you will draw the diagram, suppose you are drawing the spring balance, okay, you must label it properly because in science, whether it is a physics, chemistry or biology, the labeling is very important. Suppose I am showing you this thing. Okay. Now you have to label properly. See in the book, the labeling is very good. Now A is the wooden box. Okay, there is the irregularity in the surface. B is the wooden box and there is a pool. So you have to show it clearly whatever you want to show. So it is very much important. And whenever you will draw the diagram, you must draw the diagram in the white page using the pencil and the scale and rubber. You will not use pen anywhere. Okay. I hope you have understood it. Okay. So for today, up to this thing, next class we will discuss about more. Okay.